then I came up with this. If you build construction crew like 1 month before starting the project, and you just bring them at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you pick them up at 9 o'clock in the evening, because that's how long they work in Asia. So you drop them over there, probably in the first few days, somebody would say, hey, what are we supposed to do here? And then in the next few days, somebody would say, let's do something. And somebody would say, well, let's build up these reps, man. So that's the idea that you want to bring to your team. Bring them early in the project. They start thinking, and they can come to your customer with ideas what's supposed to be done in the project. So instead of building scope creep from the customer side and building scope plating from the team side, you can bring these two together early in the project. And I know in traditional management, you never let customer talk to the team. Now, in a kind of 21st century approach, we should let customer talk. So what we need to build is expert customer. We need to build personas on our team side. What is the persona or act? Somebody who can act or mimic customer or user, end user on the team side. And if you don't know what customer really wants, we need to get somebody who is expert on the customer side who can really tell us what we want or what he wants actually as an end user. And we can bring that person to sit 8 hours within our team to make sure that we really deliver what's needed. In traditional project management, you don't have this. And this kind of approach allows you to adapt to changes quickly, to see change immediately. You don't need to wait 2 weeks for status meeting to find out that this is not acceptable. You're going to find that in 2 days. Another thing that I like to recommend and I like to use is extreme custom. You build radar diagram and you position the value of your project output in terms of cost, functions, time, and whatever. And then in that analysis, you want to position yourself toward end user, which is an average user, and then you want to talk about extreme customer. What is the extreme customer? Anybody? Extreme customer. Have you heard that in project management? You can say that I made all these terms this morning. or you can trust me, you can start searching on the internet about these terms. Extreme customer is unlikely user of your product, but still potential user of your product. Apple, when they were building iPhone, I think, they used this approach to build extreme customer. And do you know who was extreme customer for Apple? For iPhones? Pope.
The Pope?
Yeah, the Pope. And they say, if this guy is going to, my mom will beat me up now, but let's say, if this guy with the gold ring would use this, it's going to be gold or silver or whatever. So you, at that moment, you expand the functions, the scope of the project, but you make it more realistic now because you can see who is your segment, market segment that you're targeting. And you don't do that by yourself, you bring customer into this as well. Okay, once you start building, planning, you make your decisions in the last moment. Why in the last moment? Because that's the final moment when you're supposed to gather all information to make a decision about your plan. So give as much time as possible and start as soon as possible. You see, it's a kind of oxymoron here. But that's pressure that we are facing in the modern market. Now, once we start planning, we need to come up with the baselines. And we all know baselines from the team market, etc. But some of the baselines that I really like to focus is, of course, schedule, cost, risk baseline. Risk baseline, definitely. How many of you have a risk baseline in your project? Well, like you, because you don't have risks on the project. I'm a major risk on the project. All right. What is the best way to control risk on your project? To contact. And how about when you deal with the customers, to specs? When you work with a team to work orders, etc. So something on paper, something formal. It doesn't need to be a paper, it can be email as well. Okay? So that will take us to schedule now. And I have to point out that there are a couple of things here that I use, and I have to, I never heard that anybody else is using this tool, so I have to say that I think I'm So, for example, I always say the deadline is a fixed movable target. And then I always go to my manager, and when he asks me for delivery date, I always give him optimistic and pessimistic. And he doesn't like that, especially at the beginning of the project, because the range is like this. But then, as we get closer to the end of the project, that range is getting smaller and smaller. And then he comes and asks, so how come now you can tell me 2 days, in 2 weeks actually, there was the delivery day was like 2 weeks apart, optimistic and pessimistic. And he says, how come you cannot be accurate like this at the beginning of the project? I said, because I'm at the end of the project now. So you know, like, there's like a month of work left, so you cannot be more than plus minus 2 weeks, right? So we're going to deliver. So as we learn throughout the project, that optimistic and pessimistic range is shrinking, but you always respond with this, because you don't want people to lock you up in 1 day. Also, when you go to these meetings, when you have to commit, if you come up with optimistic and pessimistic estimates, you're better off if you come up with something that's based on statistics. You don't want to walk in a room with your hands and say, I think I can do this in 3 months. If you do some statistics and you say, based on a Monte Carlo analysis or based on a Z-table confidence level, so and so, I think we can deliver between 3 and 6 months for this project. Hey, you need to do something, statistics, and probably that guy doesn't even know what you're talking about, but that's enough for you that you put your foot in the door, so you have a range. Not because you're lazy, but you just because the project is risk, and you have to apply your risk within your scheduling. Another thing that I like to do is to remove deliverables. You know, in Microsoft project, you have WBS and WBS levels, right? And even government says you have to report cost up to 3rd level of WBS, etc. I like to have only 1 level of WBS. I don't have deliverables. Instead of deliverables, I have milestones. What is the duration of the milestone?
0.
Who said it? 0? Watch out. Okay, milestone is 0 duration. So when you take a look at my task list in a project, in Microsoft project, they are all at the same level. Now, why do I do that? Besides, I'm a lazy, selfish person. Why do I do that? Why do I avoid to have deliverables and then sub-tests of the sub-tests of the sub-tests of the work package? Why do I do that? Because I would eliminate double or unnecessary critical paths. Because I have seen project managers, they connect deliverable to deliverable and then tasks within the tasks. The tasks between the deliverables to tasks from another deliverable. I avoid that. I call it project normalization. If you work in a database environment, you know when they have a parent-child relationship? So the same concept. Only children from the same milestone can interact. From the same deliverable. So if 2 children from different parents have a relationship, in other words, from different deliverables have connections, they're supposed to be deliverable by itself. So to avoid that confusion, I just remove deliverables and I just put them as a milestones. And then you can build the critical paths and reduce complexity of your project. That's one thing that I would recommend if you have not done that yet. Second thing that I would like to recommend is coming on the next page actually. When you start your project, the most important thing is how much is remaining, not how much you have done. So instead of talking what happened on a project and what happened on a previous occasion, no, just move forward and see what happened and what's left to do. Make sure that you have a quick transfer from the stakeholder to stakeholder, from the owner to the owner. Another thing that I like to point out is the 90-10 rule. What is the 90-10 rule? I recognize that people like to report 90% done all the time. So you spend 2 weeks to do 90% of your work, and then you spend 6 months to do 10% of your work. So as soon as somebody says, I'm 90% done, that means he's not done at all. So when I talk to people and they come up with those statements, I immediately connect those two. I'm not asking that you tell me I'm 37.5% done, but there must be some accuracy into that estimate. When I asked him to report to me, I asked him to report changes related to start, finish, percentage complete, any risk associated with their tests. Keep that communications as simple as possible. Another thing that I like to point is critical path per resource. So, you know, when you go to Microsoft Project and you click filter and you say, give me all critical tasks, right? And Microsoft does it beautifully. Well, I really do care about it, but then I care about something else. I want to see how much of the critical tasks belong to a certain person or department. Because I want to see can they really deliver. Then second thing that I like to do is to save the file and then reduce critical task durations by 10%. This approach will bring me a hidden critical task or critical patterns. Are you with me with this? So you have a critical task based on dependencies, right? But I want to find out that what is the second wave of critical tasks that I will see on my project coming soon. Because as soon as you start delivering project early, some of the non-critical tasks will pop up. I also learned that engineers are smart people and they read books. So they learn that critical path is the longest path of the project, and if they're part of the critical path, that means they're critical. So if they're not part of the critical path, they don't need to do their work. And that leads to another kind of theory or approach, or whatever you call it. It's called student syndrome and Parkinson syndrome, part of the critical chain method. What is the student syndrome? Those people who don't work on a critical path, tasks, they would do their work in the last minute, which means they would be very likely late. So you turn a non-critical task into a critical task, which means you push project forward. I mean, you delay project. That's a student syndrome. Parkinson syndrome is every task will take as much time as given or more. So if somebody says, I can do that in 2 weeks, and even if you give it in 3 weeks, it's going to take 3 weeks or more. So what do we do with that? You need to build culture that people would approach project with a couple of statements such as start as soon as possible and finish as soon as possible. So as soon as you can start something, do it, and as soon as you can finish something, release it. In terms of cost, if you're a big company, you don't need to worry about this because you get stimulus package, but if you're a small company, then you really need to make sure that you make profit because that's how you pay taxes. And they get stimulus package over there. So if the company doesn't track down the cost and they don't want to let you know how much they pay consultants or whatever, or how much they pay themselves, you can always perform earned value analysis using level of effort. Level of effort is the total hours that you really spend on a project. So in that scenario, you can, if you don't have money, you can still, if you don't have budget within the project, you can still use earned value analysis by level of effort approach. You can build S-curve as well, which is graphical presentation of the project budget. You can also build an S-curve. How many of you are in Agile? Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody. Agile solved this problem by developing burn-down charts. So what they do, they ask people to estimate workload in points or hours. And points and hours can be translated in money easily, but people don't do that, just to take pressure. But they do this analysis by building burn-down and burn-out charts to see how much work is remaining and how much work you accomplished. When you turn these points into money, you build the cost of the project. As a matter of fact, Agile is very micromanaging tool or framework. Do you agree with it? No? In my opinion, Agile is very micromanaging, but people don't see that because they just manage or report a piece or inch of the project. We'll talk about it later. Those who join Agile session, we'll talk about it. Now, if you work in a project, perfect project management role, your job is very important. In other words, every time, if you plan well and there are no troubles on a project, you as a project manager, you have a perfect day. I call it window shopping because a few times I was working on a project and I had to go and bring cookies or pizzas because there is nothing. And I don't want to interrupt the movement or dynamics within the project by having some meetings that nobody cares. If everything is okay, just push forward again. Get it done, push forward. Keep it simple and smart, you know that. But just enough. Just enough to get it done. That means if you have to work 24 hours to get all those statistics, analysis, and reports to the stakeholders, you gotta do that. And if you have to go and buy pizza, do that too. That's your job as well. We have to play and roll either from clown to king. If you have to be funny, we have to be funny. If you have to close it, we have to close it. Do not manage project files, manage your project. What is the difference between the two? A lot of us are using tools that require additional tune-ups and tweaks, and especially if you start working in Microsoft Project 2010, 2013, you know they have a manual schedule and automatic schedule. So if you didn't figure out that, you may find out that your schedule is stretching by itself. So you spend hours fixing that issue instead of managing project. Keep it simple. One of the best products that came out of Microsoft is Excel. You can use Excel to manage your project. It doesn't matter how important it is. How big is it is. You can use Excel to do it. In terms of resource management, I kind of developed a scenario calling working dead. What is working dead? It's not about sleeping at work. It's just that you don't bring any creativity, innovation, solution to the project, which is like a dead-end job for you or something. Try to build relationship with the team and keep that optimism to motivate people to move from that stage into something more creative. Another thing that I recognize is that people don't work 8 hours. And I don't work 8 hours, maybe sometimes less, sometimes more. So why is that? Well, we have dynamics within the project that we have to adopt. Another thing that we need to kind of take into consideration is capacity that's available. Why do I need to know how many hours you work per day? Because I can judge your estimates against that. If I see you that you work 5 hours a day and 3 hours are spent on useful meetings, then you cannot tell me I'm going to do this in 10 days. Probably it's going to take you a little more time, simply because you're busy with other things. I work only with one company in USA that acknowledge that people don't work 8 hours. They pay you 8 hours, but you work 6 hours. Those 2 hours, they count on coffee, paying electrical bills, fountain talks, or whatever. So when you estimate your work, you say I work 6 hours a day, and that's how I'm projecting how much work I can do. Again, this is a cultural change for many, but let's be honest here. If you approach this and you tell this to your upper management, they know this. They know that you don't work 8 hours. The reason as a project manager, I just want to say what's reality here. I want to start planning project from the real picture, painting it using a real picture, not something like the imagination or something. In terms of leadership, I developed something called open metrics. And again, it works only in my head, in my role, and those who like to hire me, right? So, always the open matrix. Anybody can manage anybody as a part of the test. So let's say I found out that papers are very hard to get in a corporate area. And especially if some dude from like 10,000 miles away has to sign a paper, he's unreachable. So for me, like, usually I lost like 5% of my schedule just by chasing papers around because people don't sign on time. So I figured out if I can manage that guy, even though he's VP, if I can manage that guy for my test, for this duration of that test, I can build a relationship with that person and I can get it done. So I call that open matrix again. For this test, I'm your boss. Tomorrow you're still VP, but right now I want you to sign this, and I want you to be responsible. As bigger company, as far away people are. In other words, some of those VPs are really untouchable in a big company, and they don't understand that they slow down the project. And if I lose 2 weeks on you for nothing, for a piece of paper, I may lose some additional time just because people are demotivated because they're waiting for your response. A couple other things here that I already mentioned, that we need to build project management in the team, that we need to get support from upper management, that we need to build relationships through results. Now, for me, I'm a consultant, I'm disposable. I never get attached to that level that you can mess up my project. But it's very difficult when you're a full-time employee and you know these people for years. You cannot press and you cannot ask for results if they're tired or they don't feel good or whatever. I always say, if you're my friend, then deliver, do it sooner, so I'm not going to bother you. I also like to say to people that I'm not their manager, I'm just project manager. I manage piece of paper, and that piece of paper will have information that will be provided to you. Because in the scheduling, I always use one sentence that says, if you own task and you estimate it, that's a clear ownership. Nobody else can overturn that idea or estimate that you're giving to me. And I'm going to put that estimate on a piece of paper, and that's the only thing that I'm going to get from you. I'm not your boss. As a project manager, when you work in a matrix environment, that's very important. Otherwise, functional manager and even team members, when they find out that you don't have power to influence their decisions. But they still have to have responsibility to deliver tasks. Delegate work. That's why I say if you connect to the team before starting the project, you can see who are the experts immediately, and you can click with those people immediately. That's really like the whole point of starting that relationship before starting the project. You don't want to build a relationship inside the project. That's taking too much time. In terms of quality, I like to use, in Agile they call it information radiators, common areas when you display information. You know, they say reward publicly, criticize privately, or whatever. What I like to do is to develop these little charts with the arrows throughout the timeline. And I like to project those arrows per deliverable, per task, or per task. I'm not going to use your name, but people know that you own the deliverable. And if you come to me and say, I don't agree with you showing people what errors I made, I'm going to say I didn't mention the name, but you own the deliverable. So next time when you do better work, I'm going to put your name there. Again, it's easy for me to say because I come as a consultant. I'm emotionally attached to the project, not to the team. But I like to build a relationship with the team. And my relationship with the team is only through results. If I see you're a hard-working person, I'll take you for lunch, I'll bring pizza for you, I'll sing for you. But if you're not performing, I have to say that you're not performing. And that's another thing that we kind of avoid to do, because you have to go to the HR lady, and HR lady is usually a thin lady with the big manuals that she goes around and tries to make sure that everybody is happy, etc. But that's sometimes not the case. Sometimes people have to correct themselves. And you can help the HR lady by pointing out bottlenecks within your project. Now, I like to connect team to results, and that's quality. When I connect team to results to the customer, that's verification. And who would help me to make sure that when I go through validation, I already get verification as well? Do you know any title that I mentioned in this presentation that can help me say, yeah, that's exactly what we want? Expert customer. Expert customer, guys, that's the key. Who said it? Oh. Expert customer is the guy who represents the majority of the end user community over there. And he's the one who will come to your validation or V&Q process and say, yes, it's working, you're going to accept this. So you don't delay by waiting months from your customer to say, I think you like it, because sometimes they're afraid to admit that they like it or not. In terms of risk, I like to build risk timelines, risk buffers, because risks happen on my projects, and I'm paranoid man, right? So I like to build that. What is the risk buffer? An extra time, money, or resources that I need to get certain tasks done. What is the risk timeline? This is the risk buffer, basically. You can build buffers next to your task, and you can assign buffers for a entire project. Now, in the risk timelines, I like to project risks within the time frame. So people can visualize at what point in the project we are hitting the troublesome area of the project. This is built by the team, not only by project manager. The team has to participate in this. I have 3 more slides. Procurement. For the 21st century, I found out that contracts that we use, especially in large organizations, are obsolete. Templates do not work anymore. The templates will punish some of the employees or contractors and reward some others who are not supposed to be rewarded. In other words, you need to make sure that the legal department is also adaptable to the changes that we have on the market these days. In terms of monitoring and controlling, I already mentioned that I like to get following information from my team. Start, finish, duration, task dependencies, changes, any risk. Keep it simple. I don't like to talk about the technical issues within the project. Especially in the status meetings. In the status meetings, I always talk about project, not technical issues. I pointed out earlier that we need to connect team to the task to the owner's responsibility that will give us result. And that's something that we should apply throughout the organization. I recommend that you keep meetings short to the point that you separate technical issues from the project management issues. Don't wait for your boss to call a meeting if it's necessary or to make a decision. And there are some issues that I found out on the project, such as when your boss can listen but he cannot hear, or he can hear but he cannot talk. In that situation, you need to make decisions, and you need to step up. Some companies don't like that, but if you remember, for me, the number one rule is to lead project forward. Then about us, kind of summary here. I already said PM stands for priority management. It's a blessing and a curse. Project managers are multi-dimensional people. We have a left and a right brain. We have to use both. So I know we can say analytical. We have to use both. We have to use both as needed. Be undeniably good and become expert in what you're offering or what you were doing. Be aware of the 0 to 0 approach. In other words, if everything goes okay on a project, nobody bothers you. But if something goes wrong, you're the first one, right? I always accept the blame whatever happens in the project, even if it's not my fault. If it's a meeting and people start accusing each other, I would say that's my fault. I want to break that conflict and move forward. That's my approach. In terms of close project formally celebrate, because life is beautiful, we should celebrate our successes. There is nothing good as a success on a project. If you believe in the project, you are capable of doing something. Any questions so far? No questions? You'll have people, like you'll have to get. Here is that we have a raffle, and is Dennis.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you like to run the raffle now for the 20 videos?
We actually, can we do it at the end of the day?
Okay, good.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Mike, okay.
So Mike has donated a raffle. You want to just explain what it is, Mike?
Well, basically we have a project management expert certification, and we give a case studies to people to answer those case studies, provide answers, and we give them 20 videos. So those who qualify will receive this opportunity to work on these case studies and become project management expert and earn 20 videos.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions, guys? I really appreciate your attention. That's all.
Additionally, we give the speaker something which I picked up Mike at the airport yesterday. And the only thing he remembered about being here before was he got one of these.
And believe it or not, I traveled with the Hershey M&M, something that I even had in my travel bag, believe it or not. Because M&M stands for Mike Marco, or Snickers Mike Marco.